I feel very uneasy about going on about this because I think Anson, as I just wrote a note to her, gave the very best talk on what democracy and civil rights are really all about that I've ever heard in my life. I think my friend Roger Garside may be here. Would you put your hand up? Are you here, Roger? Yes, there he is. He wrote a book a long time ago after Mao's death called Coming Alive in Peking when he was it was just after he'd been in the British embassy there. It was about Democracy Wall, as it was called. And the man who had been the great star at Democracy Wall was Wei Jingsheng, who went to jail for 15 years thereafter for what was called sedition. So I'm not here to say that the American or the British model of democracy is the best or even a model. I'm certainly not going to say what Martin Jake said, that we have to learn that a bad model of democracy is Italy. But we could think about Iceland or Sweden or Norway. Now, what I really have in mind is this. For 4 years, when I was in a kind of second stage of learning about China, I lived in China. And there was a very brutal dictator in charge. He had a terrifying wife. There were a lot of political prisoners. There was no free press. It was really very scary if you were a Chinese. Then that dictator died, and before long, his son took over, and that place is now a democracy. That's Taiwan. It's full of Chinese who wanted really what, in fact, had been denied to them for many years. And after that, I worked in China for many years, and over again in Tiananmen and in lots of other times and places in China. I saw the Chinese, the need of many Chinese, as they expressed, for these models of a kind of democracy, a free press that's not stifled, that can say what it's like, and can even be pornographic and wrong and libelous and scabrous. That there should be free speech, that aside from, again, from slander and things of that kind and racist remarks, that there should be free speech, that there should be freedom of assembly, that people can get together in groups. In fact, it's what Obama said last night in his speech, that what you see in America is the argument for political change. Impossible in China today, but a good thing. Regular elections that people know are going to happen. You might get a terrible leader, you might get a good one. You can't be sure, but at least people can get rid of a government, or they know it'll go away after a while. And above all, the rule of law, something really predictable. And then I think, it's a thing I was thinking about in the cab coming over here, a real education, so that if you meet young Chinese who are the elite, who are here at the LSE or at Oxford or Cambridge, and if you say to them, what happened in Tiananmen Square in 1989? They say it was a riot, and bad people shot down our army and our police. That's what they've been taught in school, and there are many examples of that kind of thing. So what we see is that on the Chinese internet, I just did this today to see what the words were that you can't get, that are not, they're not available. You can't read about Wen Jiabao, the premier, who turns out to be in a family of billionaires. The word Taiwan can't appear in the Chinese internet unless you're very good at dodging around it. Or democracy, Tibet, Dalai Lama. If you use any of those words, there can be a knock on the door and you can go inside. It's true that you can say things in restaurants, or you can say things outside, and then all of a sudden something happens. So that if you're the Nobel Prize winner Liu Xiaobo, you go into jail for about 11 years. Or Ai Weiwei, the man who helped to design the Olympic Stadium, is a man who now can't leave China. There is no real concerted political action. If you try that, as in Tiananmen, and in the 300 other cities where there were big demonstrations in the spring of 1989, if you try that, the people who have tried that concerted political action may or may not go to jail, or they may be shot down. Or what we just heard about the standing committee that's about to be unveiled. That's what's about to happen in China. They're about to have 7 or 9 new men always. They're being unveiled. Now, I think there are 700 of you here. I wonder if there are 20 people in this room who can name one name of those people who are going to be running China in the next 10 years. And most Chinese are the same. They have never heard of most of these people, and they will discover who they are after they've been unveiled. In law, the Chinese statement is verdict first, trial afterwards. And that happens over and over again. So that, for instance, when the wife of a man who's now also been disgraced, who was about to go on to the Standing Committee, Bo Xilai, she was accused of murdering the British businessman Hayward. She read out what was the charge against her. It had all been written down for her at her trial, and then she was condemned. And as I say in education, if you ask Chinese now what they know about their own past, it's very, very little. And if you ask them what they think happened in certain great events, or what they think of the Dalai Lama, or about what goes on in Tibet, they'll give you the government line. So these are the things that I think are the big problems, that free speech, some kind of community action, a free press, all of these things wouldn't change these things, but they would start to make it possible to think about changing them. The enormous gap in China between rich and poor, which is very well expressed in Mr. Jake's book. The vast official corruption, which is what the Chinese say when they're polled by Pew, is the thing that they regard as the most important problem. The one-child system, which may be now about to be changed, which has led to a very unbalanced society in which there are far too many old people, and young people are going to have to support huge families of very, very old. I think we'll talk some more about this in the question and answer session. So what I'm not saying is that we have the model here, or that we in the West have solved these problems. But these problems about corruption, about the violence of the state, about the fact that Mao Zedong's portrait still hangs over Tiananmen Square. Can you imagine that happening in Germany with Hitler, or in Cambodia with Pol Pot? I mean, it's really revolting, isn't it? So I think that we can discuss all this in the question and answer period. I look forward to that. I'd like to say one more thing. If I were a Chinese and I said any of the things that I've just said here to you tonight, and I said these things in China, I'd go straight to jail tomorrow, and I'd be in jail for years and years and years. It's a great thing, isn't it, that we can say these things here, or that my Chinese colleagues can say what they want to say here. They can say it and nothing will happen to them. If I tried saying these things and I were a Chinese in China today, tomorrow I'd be behind bars. So think about that and think how you would like it if you were a Chinese. Thanks.